So what this came through was an Ask Me Anything feed online. So I created this basically this page, and people then could then come and ask questions about career progression, climbing that corporate ladder, starting their own business, and a whole multitude of topics just focused on that kind of environment. So we're going to go through these questions one by one. We did this a few weeks ago, and so if there's any questions, feel free to call in here to the Hmong Chamber at 715-842-8390, and we can take your calls as well. So first question that comes in on this business Ask Me Anything is, what can one do to cope with long hours that some careers demand? And that's a great question, because I think sometimes before we get into a specific role or specific company, we might think the hours are an 8 to 5 job, Monday to Friday. And what actually happens is you get in there and you realize this is more of a 7 to 7. And then depending on the time of the year, I might be coming in on the occasional Saturday. If anyone that's ever worked in retail, they're familiar, if you work at like a Walmart or a Target, that come October, all the way until December, they're going to have extended hours at the store. They're going to have more staff in there. A lot of their money is earned during those last 3 months of the year. And so what that happens is, if you're in retail, let's say your first job right out of high school, you became a supervisor or an assistant manager, and then all of a sudden you realize that you're almost living at the store, and that can be very, very heavy. The other one that it reminds me of, the other piece, if you will, is the demandingness of different sectors. So if, let's say, you decided to get into finance or accounting, all of a sudden you realize that there is a whole multitude of time that you need to put in order to hit those deadlines, in order to hit those corporate tax returns or those individual tax returns. And all of us are familiar with that. Come April 15th, we either go see a tax individual or we got to do those ourselves. And so it can be extremely demanding on our time. And so when we find ourselves in those situations where it was a little bit more than we anticipated, we might want to have a look at our career and say, is this what I want to be doing? I know people that chose a life of a teacher professionally because they liked the schedule that much. And so I'm a big believer that we should move our careers in a way that's satisfying for us. Now, you might start out your career and have no problems running 6 in the morning till 6 at night, 5 or 6 days a week, and doing that day in and day out. But fast forward 5 years later, you might find yourself saying, you know what? I want to have a longer weekend. I want to do a more 8 to 6 kind of a role. And so you decide to do different things. I know for a lot of people, they might take that next job promotion, and all of a sudden they went from traveling of barely any to all of a sudden they're gone 50% of the time out of the state. And so they might realize that promotion wasn't worth the trade-off of time. Next question comes to us at, what can one do if their career choice is not eliciting excitement anymore? So this is so common for a lot of people out there. I don't know if any of you that are listening feel the same way, where you got into a specific job and you enjoyed it, and all of a sudden, a few years later, several years later, you are no longer finding that satisfaction. It could be the people that you're working with. It could be the job that you're doing. And maybe it's that you haven't gotten a promotion. Maybe you're still doing the exact same thing that you did 5 years ago. And that can be really, I don't want to say depressing, because I don't want somebody to go in their corner of their house or their room and go ball up in a corner over these kinds of things. But it might just make you stop and pause and go, what am I doing? I can't stand going into work. I dread Monday. And so it's an opportunity when we feel that lack of excitement in our careers, we can do something different. Remember, we work about 40 hours a week. And if you work 50 weeks in a year, That is 2,000 hours of our lives dedicated working. The question we really want to ask ourselves, is that how we want to spend our 2,000 hours? Now, I know someone cynical might say, well, then I'm just going to go on vacation all the time. Well, you can do that. And maybe you should be a travel, a travel journalist or a travel blogger. Maybe that's what you want to be doing. I think for a lot of people, when they have a look at what they want to be doing, they want to enjoy it. And it doesn't mean it's the greatest love of your life. It's not your only passion, because I think we can have a multitude of different passions. However, you should be doing it in a place that you want, with people that you want, in a capacity that's satisfying for you. If you don't find yourself in that predicament, you might want to do something different. All right. So how many of you feel that way?